So always follows an outline called the hero's journey, and we're going to walk through that. So this is how to do effective storytelling, how to tell your story. And I was actually prompted to do this again by the lovely Heather, because she was like, I literally recall the first like 3 or 4 Zooms I hopped on, and she like listed them all up. And she was like, and they stick in my brain. And she's like, one of them that you have to do again is you have to do the brand archetypes, and you absolutely have to do telling your story again. And so the most important part about understanding how to tell your story is it almost kind of works in the way that we have learned to build relationships and close deals using like feel, felt, found. Sometimes having a framework to work from helps. Having prompts helps. So it's really important to understand what's called this Epiphany bridge script, or the hero's journey, to understand how to tell your story, because it's a simple framework, and you can like literally, I'm jealous, Tracy. You can literally scrunch this story into 30 seconds, into 5 minutes, into 30 minutes, into an hour. Okay. And so that's why learning this framework is really, really important, because you can touch on each part of the framework and still tell your story, but how detailed you get in each part determines how long it is. Okay. So you can use this framework to tell your story at the to the grocery store clerk in passing, or you can use it when you're talking on stage and delivering a speech to 30,000 people, right? It doesn't matter. Okay. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to walk you guys through this. I know people are going to ask me what book I'm going through. Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. Okay. And there's a part in this called the Epiphany bridge script. And I'm going to go over this with you. And I actually read this, hold on just a second. I actually read this in one of my copywriting books and a couple others. Hold on. Sorry, my son was listening to his iPad really, really loud. Okay, so we're going to go through this, and I'm going to try to make it, I don't go like super, I don't go too fast, okay? But, so it first starts, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 parts to this story. The first part is the backstory, okay? And I'm going to break down what you do in each part. So the 6 parts. First part is the backstory. So it opens with talking about your, just what were you doing? Who were you? Again, you're giving backstory. So if like we're talking about your Thrive experience, talk about who you were pre-Thrive. Okay. And a lot of that has to do with making sure you're touching on the internal struggle and the external struggle. Okay. Internal struggles, like how you feel and what you struggled with as far as confidence and exhaustion and, all that stuff. External struggles being like weight, money, groceries, things like that. Okay. So make sure when you're telling your backstory, you touch on the desire for change, like how you knew. Okay. Your internal and external struggle. Lastly, you're going to touch on your old vehicle. What they mean by that is what you did when you felt those things. So like, what were you doing? You're like, so if I'm telling my Thrive experience, be like, prior to Thrive, I was a tired mom. I was putting on weight. I was broke. I was sick and tired of those things. I was trying everything under the sun. I was trying old supplements. I was trying fad diets. I was doing all these side hustles to no avail. Nothing was working, right? That's it. Those were the old vehicles. Okay. The old vehicles were, what was I trying but wasn't working? What was I doing that wasn't helping? Okay. So you're going to list all the things that you tried to do, or the things that you were, your old habits. Okay. So that's your old vehicle. Sorry, I'm still admitting people. Okay. Next, the next section. Okay. So the second section is called the journey/conflict. Okay. The journey/conflict. Now, this is where you start bridging the old you and the almost new you. Okay. So the journey starts in this first. Okay. So under that second section, here are the 3 things underneath it. The call. Okay. When you,
Should we have all this?
yes, just scoop it. The call. When you realized you needed something different. The journey, Casey. So the call is, what was your wake up call? What was the moment you knew things needed to be different? Okay, so this is almost like your low point. Okay, when you knew things needed to be different. Then the villain. The villain can be a person, it can be a thing, it can be your thoughts, it can be what is creeping in and either trying to keep your life the same or trying to keep you from doing something new. Okay, so when they talk about the hero's journey, there's always a villain. The villain is either internal or it's external, and the villain is either preventing this awakening or this new journey or whatever, right? They're trying to keep them the same or bring them down. That's kind of the villain. It's either a person or a thing or a feeling. Okay, the villain could be your job. If you feel like your job is holding you back. Okay, if you feel like people in your life, if you feel like just an old company that you were, whatever, it can be anything. Okay, it can be your self-doubt. Those can be villains. Then there's the what if. Okay, then there is the what are you thinking in response to this villain, or what are you thinking about this calling, about this awakening? Okay. So obviously you're talking as somebody who's already come to the when I say the end of your journey, I mean like you've made the decision to start this opportunity. That's the end of the journey, right? Because you were not on the journey, you got a calling, you started to go there. What was the process? Boom, now you have made the decision to start. Okay, so that when I say the end of your journey, that's what I mean. So you're speaking as somebody from that. So what if? Well, what if I, did these things? What if I did this differently? What if I joined this opportunity? What's the worst that can happen? What I was thinking about what it could possibly do for my family, right? So you start talking about the what ifs. Why is this so important? Because you're walking people through the thought process you had that they're having right now or that they will have. So it feels more relatable. They know that you're not full of crap. They know that you might have had doubts. So that is the third piece underneath the journey and the conflict. The third section, right? So first we have the backstory. Second, we have the journey. And then third, we have the new opportunity. Okay. The new opportunity. So underneath the new opportunity, there is 3 sections under that. Okay. There is a guide. Okay. A guide can be a person. In your case, it might be the person who showed you this opportunity. It might be the team. It might be the company. Okay. So there's always a guide. It can even be somebody like figurative, like a mentor that doesn't even know they're your mentor, right? Like if you're like, I was listening to this podcast and because of something they said, it awakened something inside of me. Like that's your guide, right? So it could be anything. It could be your spouse that's just saying, I notice that you're just not yourself lately, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then they help you along this weight loss journey. Okay. So it has a guide. Who is that? When you're telling your story, it'll probably be one of your uplines or whoever introduced you to the product. Okay. Then there is the epiphany. The epiphany for us is probably when we either earn our first check, we join a community, when we try the product. Okay, so the epiphany is when you get a taste of that new thing and it's like your light bulb moment. Okay. So for a lot of us, that's very different. For some of you, it's as soon as you join the chat and you're like, wow, this community is just so supportive. It's so different. For you, it could be when you get your first check, when you sign on your first customer. It could be when you get a mini experience or try the product for the first time. That is your epiphany. Okay. Lastly, it is the new opportunity. Okay. when you decided to finally, or what is the thing you're deciding to do? It's like you've been along this journey and then you're just like, I've decided this is what I'm going to do. You know, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start Thrive. I'm going to join this team. I'm going to be a promoter. Okay. So after you've had the epiphany, and then you make, so the new opportunity is almost like your choice, your decision. Okay. And then you go into the fourth part, okay, the fourth section, which is the framework. So now you've told somebody your backstory, you told them what awakened you, you told them your doubts, all the things that were going against you, your moment, your light bulb moment, the choice you made. Now you're going to say, now this is almost like, then I became a promoter. Then what's going to convince them then? Not just your story, that's great, but another part of your story is, how are you going to help them do the same thing? So this is the framework, okay? Strategy. So under the fourth part, which is framework, the three things that are, one of them is strategy, okay? You start telling people, right? So once I started promoting, then I realized that's when you can talk about VIP. I just got 2 customers, 2 promoters. It was so easy because I was throwing people in 3-way chats. Our team has so many resources that it was almost impossible to fail. Okay. Then you go into your results. Okay. What were your results? I earned 500 in my first 2 weeks, or I started thriving for free because I got 2 friends. Okay. What are your results? The third one is others' results. You can talk about someone's results that you really respect. It could be your upline. You can like, the reason that, you know, this is my result, but like I signed on with another person who they earned 1,300 in their first 2 weeks. Take a look at so-and-so right here. She was able to do XYZ. Okay. And you have like, it's part of your story, but you have like proof. And what I love about our company is that we all know people, we all have the availability to all this proof because we have so many people that are succeeding. Okay, it's not like the company is pushing out these 3 or 4 success stories and say, hey, mass message this to everybody. Everybody post these same things to your stories. You know, you can say, yeah, I had a friend and they earned a $1,300 bonus. Here's her picture. Here's her post. Here's the proof. Like, here it is. Like, I know them. Right? It's not some random person that you've never met before, never talked to, or you don't even know their name, right? It's somebody that you actually know. And don't feel like in order to put others' results out there that they have to be like, look, she earned $1 million. It could even just be somebody that says, like, you could take a screenshot of someone's post and you can be like, look, she's been doing this for under a month and already she was able to get a brand new car. You know, she just got a $500 check, you know, in her first 2 weeks or whatever the case might be, because those are results that people can really attach to because it's closer to where they are and it feels more attainable and more real. Okay. Then the 5th section of storytelling is achievement and transformation. Okay. Achievement and transformation. So the 2 sections underneath this, that's exactly what they are, achievement and transformation. So achievement is, it could be something as simple as, you know, once I did it, I just realized how simple it was to implement the system. It was so easy to put people in 3-way chats. When I started putting people in 3-way chats, I noticed that I was closing deals more easily. I noticed that I was doing this. Remember, achievement is something that's different for everybody. What is achievement for me is different than what you consider it. Again, don't think it has to be a bonus or something super huge, okay? So pointing out the achievement and then transformation. So talking about how your life is different now. So this is kind of when you go back and you revisit who you were or what you were struggling with and how you no longer struggle with those things, how things have changed, how are they different? You're kind of bringing them full circle. Okay, that's what your story should do. And why? Why is it better than a linear story? Well, because as you tell your story, you get further and further and further away from where they are. and they relate to you less and less and less and less and less. You want your story to be a circle because they're here. Okay. This is where you started, where they are right now. And you come around and you tell your story and you talk about transformation and achievement. And then you wrap it back up with, well, remember, this is where I started, where you are right now. This is what I was struggling with. I no longer have that, and even if you're like, no, I'm still struggling with those things, you can say, what I love is that I have the hope that I don't have to struggle with those things anymore. I have a new vehicle that, a new tool, a new resource, a new opportunity that's going to give me the different results than I had before. I have a team that I know is going to carry me into financial independence. I have those things. Okay. So, and I feel like when I said 5, I did not have 5. I did not have 6. I had 5. So, it just didn't count correctly. And I will also like type this up in the Trello board as well. It is dark in here. I will type this up and put it in the Trello board as well, because it has a more easily broken down guide for those who are either watching it now or watching it later, watching the recording. So that is something that as you have that framework and you think to yourself, you don't even have to think about the little teeny tiny in between steps. You just think, okay, what is my backstory? My backstory is that I was a tired, broke, exhausted mom. I was doing everything under the sun to try to feel better and nothing was working. I was tired of running the mill and getting no results. What was my calling? My calling was, I just knew I needed to be a better mom for my kids. I knew they deserved better, but my job was getting the job was getting in the way, and everything I just felt like was holding me back. I just doubted that everything was going to work out in my favor. But then I thought, what the heck? My mother-in-law introduced me to the product. She said, hey, just give it a go. I finally did my mini experience, absolutely changed my life. Once I started feeling better, I couldn't help but tell my friends. I got 4 people to sign up, earned my bonus. Once that happened, I put $500 in my bank account, went to go grocery shopping, finally paid off my kids' childcare. I was no longer struggling. My other friend just did the same. She was in for 2 weeks, just got $700 put, into her bank account. I have several friends who have, earned new cars and trips and all of these things. But what I absolutely love most is I'm no longer that tired, exhausted, broke mom, blah, 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 right? So I just told it in like 45 seconds. If I really wanted to, I could stretch it out to 5 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes or even longer, right? The more detailed I wanted to get. And you can even break it down shorter than that as well. And so that's kind of how I want you, even if you write it down, I want you to almost write this outline. And it brings me back to like my high school days, right? When they're like, they give you an outline and they're like, hey, now I want you to fill all these things in to write the report or to write the something. But I just kind of look at it like, put the backstory, put the journey, put all those things, and then literally flesh it out, write it out in like paragraph format, like write it out, flesh it out, be like, what is my backstory? What was my journey? Who was my guide? Like, who was the villain, or what was the villain in my life? What is my transformation? Who can I default to as far as experiences that I want to share? Because you have to know your story, and it has to be something you can literally tell in your sleep, because your story is part of who you are. It's what makes you recognizable. And I use this example all the time, right? We all know, well, for those of us we all know Jessie Lee's story, right? She always just says, I only started this because I needed $600 to pay rent because I was living in a basement. I didn't even have my own bathroom. I didn't have my own kitchen. Like, we all know that's part of her story. We all know that she sent her dad to jail. We all know those things. Like, we know it. You want people to know you by your story. You want it to kind of become a part of your brand and who you are. And so I also think people struggle with knowing how to tell their story. And why I love this framework is you can tell your story in so many different ways. You can tell your story in so many different lengths of time, right? So yeah, I would write out, what is my 30-second story? Okay, so Casey said, I struggle with the short one. Then you need to practice writing a 30-second story. So the 5-step framework, right? So how it has backstory, journey, new opportunity, framework, and achievement. Write like a sentence for each. Okay, that's your 30-second story. Then I want you to imagine that do a 2-minute story. Okay. Then I want you to do like a 10-minute story. So have like 3 ready to go. And here's the thing, you're going to do your 30-second and 2-minute story every day. You should be telling someone your story every single day. That's another thing I heard, and I heard it echoed on the GoPro. I've heard it echoed. I've been in Clubhouse on these like trainings, and they just say, if you can tell your story to one person every single day, you will be a millionaire within 3 years. Okay. If you can tell a new person your story every single day, that is 365 people you are talking to and telling your story to. So I encourage you guys to do that. Write this framework out. Know what your story is. Know exactly each piece. Oh, Hannah, hope your mouth's okay. That was a hot bite. And so I think that this is really important to not only just to know what your story is, but to know how to tell your story. And there is an art to storytelling. There is. I mean, if you look at it, literally I want you to like think of a movie. Literally every movie follows this. Every movie. There was a person, they have an internal conflict. They have to go on some kind of journey, whether it's internal, external. There's something that stops them or tries to stop them. They have this like epiphany of some sort, and then they eventually go on this journey and actualize and achieve whatever it is that they're looking for. Okay. Literally just describe the plot to every Disney movie and every novel and every Twilight saga and every freaking Divergent series and literally everything, like all the books and all the movies. There you go. And it's because it is this one story, and they even traced it back to like Greek mythology, the Bible, like all these like ancient, like it's just how they tell stories. So it is proven, which is why I think it's so important to know and understand and perfect the art of storytelling. And if it's one thing that we say a lot here too, is that facts tell, but stories sell. So it is so important to tell your story. I can tell you this, my husband is a car person. And I can tell you that more than buying the car itself, the metal, it is the story behind the car. Why the car is so cool, why it's so rare, who drove it, how many there are in the world. Like, oh, this is it's the story. The story sells it. Okay. Why do people buy Madonna's bra for $30,000 on eBay? The story, right? It's the, why do people collect things? It's the story. The story is what matters. And that's why it's so important to learn what yours is. Learn your story, learn how to tell it short, tell it long, tell it in between, tell it to everybody. And I would almost memorize your 30-second and 2-minute story. And anytime you get on a Zoom, anytime you talk to a new person, it is literally something that just rolls off your tongue. And it's the same, just about the same every single time. Okay. It's funny because Tracy made fun of herself the other day for this, but literally it's part of her story. It's always like, hey, I'm Tracy, I have 10 kids, right? That's part of her story. Like that just is part of it. Okay. It's part of her backstory. It's also part of her present. But I mean, she knows that when almost everyone that's heard Tracy talk, like she knows if she's getting on a new Zoom or if she's introducing herself, that's what's coming. But that's okay. That is part of her story. People know that. Hi, I'm Tracy and I have 10 kids, right? They just know. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's good because that's now part of her branding. People know that's part of her story, right? And so I definitely think that what is yours? What's almost like, what's your tagline? Right? So have one of those and you'll understand what it is when you start writing out your story and fleshing it out. And part of me has actually almost wanted to do like a challenge, like a storytelling challenge, whether it's like getting on some kind of call or having people send it in. But also this reminds me that we are still doing the Thrive Army podcast and we're doing stories. So one thing that we will do is that we will begin to interview people and you'll need to kind of tell your 2-minute, 10-minute story. So to prepare for that, you can go ahead and flesh out this little outline that you guys just made. and have those 3 stories prepared, right? Like your 30-second, your 2-minute, your 10-minute. So does anyone have any questions? I'll write the name here of the book. I know people ask. And it's called the you can probably even look it up on Google without getting the book. It's called the Epiphany Bridge Story Model.